It was 12:03 in the morning when I heard it. 3 soft knocks at my front door. So quiet, so hesitant, that for a moment I genuinely thought I had imagined them. Because midnight sounds like that do not belong in ordinary apartment buildings. They belong in horror movies, in emergency phone calls, in the kind of nights you never see coming. Then it happened again. 3 more knocks, even softer than the first. I got up, walked to the door, and opened it. My neighbor was standing in the hallway under the dim overhead light, trembling from head to toe, like someone who had just barely made it out of something terrible. And the very first words out of her mouth were, "I can't go back in there tonight." I had no idea what I was about to step into. If you believe that one small act of kindness can completely change someone's life, drop a comment below. And let me know where you are watching from. Stories like this travel far, and we love seeing it. Now let's get back to that hallway. I did not know her well. Her name was Sarah, and she lived directly across the hall from me. In the entire year we had been neighbors, we had probably exchanged a grand total of 5 or 6 conversations. The kind of brief, polite exchanges that happen in corridors and elevator doors. A quick hello, a have a good night, and then back to our separate lives. But the woman standing at my door at midnight did not look like the person I remembered. Her hair was tangled, her eyes were red and swollen. Dark mascara had tracked down both cheeks, in thin, uneven lines, and she was gripping her phone so tightly that her knuckles had gone completely white. The hallway light buzzed faintly above us. The building was utterly silent around us. Neither of us said a word for what felt like a very long time. Then I stepped back from the doorway and told her to come inside. She did not move immediately. She stood there for a moment on the threshold. Like crossing, it meant admitting something out loud that she was not yet prepared to say. Like walking through my door made everything too real to take back. But eventually, she stepped in. She moved slowly, carefully. The way people move when they are not sure they belong somewhere. My apartment was nothing impressive. A small living room, a couch that had accumulated years of use, a kitchen that still carried the faint burnt smell of a frozen dinner I had destroyed earlier. But Sarah sat down on that worn couch like it was the most sheltered place on the planet, and then she started to cry. Not the controlled, quiet kind of crying that people do when they are trying to hold themselves together in front of someone they barely know. This was the other kind. The kind that tears itself out of a person after being compressed for far too long. The kind that sounds like relief and devastation at the same time. I did not pepper her with questions. I did not push her to explain. Some moments are not about answers. Some moments are simply about presence. I went to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and set it on the coffee table in front of her. She did not touch it. She just stared at the floor while the clock on the wall marked the seconds, each one a little heavier than the last. Eventually, she pulled her sleeve across her face, drew a long, unsteady breath, and began to speak. Her voice came out just above a whisper. She told me she had been sitting in her car in the parking lot downstairs for almost an hour before she finally made herself come up and knock. She had been going back and forth, wrestling with herself in the dark, trying to decide if asking for help was something she was even allowed to do. And the reason she could not go back into her apartment that night was because it was no longer safe. Those words settled into the room like something with real weight. I did not ask her to be more specific. I did not need her to spell it out. The full story was already written clearly across every part of her, in the exhaustion behind her eyes, in the way her hands could not quite stay still, in the way her whole body flinched. Every single time footsteps passed in the hallway outside, some things do not need to be said to be completely understood. She told me she had moved into that apartment several months earlier, with someone she loved and trusted completely, someone who had offered her safety and stability, and a future she was genuinely excited about, someone who had made promises with total ease and total confidence. But promises, she had learned, are the simplest things in the world to make. Keeping them is where character actually lives. It had started small, disagreements that seemed harmless. At first, about money, about schedules, about the small frictions that come with sharing a life. But those disagreements had quietly shifted over time. They grew sharper, louder, more cutting, more personal, until she had woken up one morning and realized that the person she had trusted above everyone else had become someone she no longer recognized at all. Tonight had been the night everything finally reached its breaking point. She did not tell me the details of what happened in that apartment. I did not ask. The way she positioned herself on the far end of the couch from the door told me enough. The way her eyes tracked every sound from the hallway told me everything else. We talked for the next hour about things that had nothing to do with any of it. Movies we had both seen, jobs we had both complained about, strange little memories from growing up that surfaced unexpectedly in the middle of quiet conversations, the kind of easy, weightless talk that people use instinctively to walk themselves back from the edge of something painful, and gradually it worked. Sarah's shoulders came down from around her ears. Her breathing evened out. The rigid tension she had carried through my door began to release, slowly and then more quickly, like ice at the start of a thaw. And then she smiled. A small one, fragile and a little uncertain, but real. She told me she had almost not knocked. She had sat in that car running the same thought on a loop, that asking for help meant admitting she could not handle things on her own, that needing someone else was a kind of failure. But somewhere in the dark of that parking lot, something shifted in her. She had realized that enduring everything alone was not actually strength. It was just isolation, wearing a brave face. Real strength, she had decided, was being willing to knock on the door anyway. By 2 in the morning, the room had gone quiet and calm. I brought out a spare blanket and told her the couch was hers for as long as she needed it. She thanked me more times than the situation required, and just before she closed her eyes, she said something I have not forgotten. She said that tonight could have ended very differently if someone had not answered that door. Over the days that followed, something began to happen that I had not anticipated. Sarah did not return to the apartment across the hall. Instead, she began, quietly, carefully, with the deliberate patience of someone who had been waiting a long time to feel safe enough to try to rebuild. She reached out to a close friend in another city. She found a counselor and made an appointment. She started making plans she had talked ourselves out of for months, plans that required believing her future was actually worth planning for. And in between all of it, we kept talking. Not every conversation was heavy or meaningful in some big cinematic way. Sometimes we just watched old movies together and made dinner that turned out questionable. Sometimes we just sat in the same room without saying much at all. But every single one of those moments counted. Every laugh, every story, every small reminder that the world still had room for good and ordinary things. About a week later, Sarah went back to her apartment during the day to collect her belongings. She asked me to come with her. When we pushed the door open, the air inside felt stale and dense, like the walls had absorbed everything that had happened within them and had not yet let it go. But Sarah did not break down. She moved through every room with a calm and quiet focus. That caught me completely off guard. She gathered her things steadily, without rushing, without hesitating. By the time we carried the last box to her car, something fundamental had changed in the way she carried herself. The fear was still there. I could see traces of it. But resolution had moved in beside it, and was taking up more space by the hour, at the bottom of the steps before she drove away. From that building for the last time, she turned to me with tears on her face. But they were not the same tears as that midnight knock. These were something softer, something that looked like a person beginning to believe they are going to be okay. She said that night had given her back something she had not realized she had lost. The memory that there are still people in this world who will open their door in the middle of the night and ask nothing in return. A month later, a message came through on my phone. Sarah had settled into a new city. She had started a new job. She was sleeping without dread, for the first time in longer than she could remember. The message was short and did not try to be poetic, but the last line has stayed with me. She wrote that sometimes a life does not change because of some enormous dramatic turning point. Sometimes it changes because one person answered a knock they had every reason to ignore. And I think about that a lot, because the truth is that most of us will never fully understand the weight of what a small act of compassion carries. We open a door and think nothing of it. We pour a glass of water and think nothing of it. We sit quietly with someone in the dark and think nothing of it. But to the person on the other side of that door, it can mean the difference between giving up and finding a way through. Sometimes strength is not the dramatic thing. Sometimes it is just the knock. And sometimes it is just the person who answers. If this story landed with you, if it reminded you that kindness is never too small, and that showing up for someone costs so little but means everything, leave a comment below. Have you ever had a moment where one person showing up completely changed the direction of things for you? Or have you ever been the one who answered when someone needed it? Tell us. Your story might be exactly what someone watching today needs to hear. If this one moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that good people still exist. And subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. We will see you next time.